Hello, this is my 1 month review of the Manly WASP in CPM S90V. So excuse the glove, I'm going to be doing some cleaning and I can't get fluids into the cut, but that aside, starting from the very beginning, I've been using this knife for over a month now as my primary EDC everyday knife. Inside the carton packaging you get two tools for takedown. There's a small and large hex driver. These are serviceable to say the least, best. They're passable. For any major maintenance, you're going to want to have a proper hex driver on your knife, but these do work, and I'll leave them there. So what else do you have in the carton package? You have the knife itself and a warranty information card. So the warranty card is Manly, Bulgaria. These knives are made in Bulgaria. They are using a American CPM S90V, but other than that, it's a Bulgarian knife. So you have some of the vitals on the knife. It's a slip joint design with G10 and steel liners. And that's that. On the back, a bit of a warranty blurb. So it is a limited lifetime warranty, meaning neglect and abuse are not covered. If you clean a fish and you leave this on the dock for a couple of days, remember it's on the dock, you go get it and it's rusted to heck, that's on you. What they will help you with is any sort of failures in metallurgy. If you break a clip, they'll charge you, but they'll help you with that. But if there's a failure in the knife, they'll take care of it. And the last clause here is this knife is not a tool. Something's lost in translation there. I spoke with Manly Canada, and what that's supposed to mean is this knife is a knife. It is not a pry bar. It is not a screwdriver. It is a knife. So as long as you're using this for cutting tasks, it will not fail you. It's a very good knife. In my use, I've been using this primarily for breaking down boxes and a little bit of light whittling. It is a great knife on wood. The blade geometry, it just bites in and takes out large chunks of wood in my use. So it's a bit of all angles of the knife. So there it is. We'll open it up. So it has a smooth thumb wrap. There is a bit of a gap between the spring bar and the thumb wrap, so you do feel just a little bit there, but it's no more than jimping on another knife. So it's not a hot spot or irritant in any way, especially I've used this for like over an hour straight and I haven't had any issues with blistering or any other issues on my hands. There's also a finger guard and a very deep sharpening choil. It's a flat grind and it's a very practical and useful blade shape. So if I have to do any sort of fine cutting, I find that pressing on the blade there, you have a lot of belly for dragging sort of cutting tasks for an X-Acto knife use. For push carving, it's great that way too. For tearing down boxes is great. The only issue I've had with the blade is that the sharpening choil, while great for sharpening, it will bind materials. So I found that I kind of choke up a little bit and let a little bit of meat hang over the guard so that it blocks the sharpening choil, and I haven't had issues with the binding. Comparable to, or not comparable, but unlike the Spyderco Delica and other Spyderco knives, there is no choil. It's just this little grind there, and that kind of Y shape, it pushes through the material a little bit better, so you don't snag on, like when you're using a Delica, it won't snag, whereas sometimes this will snag due to the choil. So it is a slip joint design, meaning there's no lock, but there is 4 stops, so that's a 3/4, half, quarter, closed. So quarter, half, 3/4 open. It's slightly firmer than, say, a Victorinox or a Swiss Army knife for reference. So it's slightly firmer, and I do prefer that. It's not hard to open and close, and it is still possible to open the knife one-handed if you really had to. It's possible, but it's a great knife. The other aspect of this is the pocket clip. The pocket clip is a very soft steel compared to, like, say, again, Delica. The Delica is a very firm spring, and I've never had an issue with the Delica clip. This guy, I've actually bent this up once to about 45, once almost to 90. One time it got snagged under my seatbelt, and I just pulled it right up. The other time was on the waistcord of my jacket. It got snagged again and pulled it right up. So it's very easy to bend back, but that means that the clip is fairly sacrificial. What do I mean by that? It's if it's going to be the clip or another object, the clip's going to give before the other object does. So that might be desirable in many cases. You still have very good retention, doesn't fall out of the pocket, but it will bend up instead of destroy the other object. I do like that about the clip. The other thing is that the screw for the clip, it is proud. It's not a flush design. So we have something with the Ferrum Forge Gent. So this is also a deep carry clip, but you can see that they've recessed some panhead screws, or not panhead, but they recessed the screws into the clip there. So if you're wearing like a gentleman's slacks or any sort of lighter clothing, that won't snag or bind, whereas this guy will bite a little bit in and wear your jeans. So for comparison, or as reference, so it is a very deep sitting knife and it's easy to get in and out of the pocket. I found it, like the Ferrum Forge, it's a thicker stock and it's not nearly as light as the Manly WASP, but it's easy to get in, but I found it was a little bit harder to get out because it would bunch up the fabric, whereas the WASP is super easy in and out, and it would also, well, I actually loosened this before, but I was part of the previous disassembly. But when it's fully cinched down, it will retain quite nicely. So now a bit more comparisons. We're going to put this guy up against other 3-inch or sub 3-inch knives. So we're going to have the Manly WASP and CPM S90V, the Ferrum Forge Gent. This is a mass drop exclusive right now. Spyderco Delica in VG10. So this is the base model Delica, and then we have the base model of the Kershaw Leak, the Ken Onion design. So going from the review, so for the first 3 weeks of my ownership review process, I used exclusively the Manly WASP, and then for the last week I had to carry 2 knives. I carry the WASP and one of the others. So that way I have a bit of a fair comparison between like the WASP, like how would the WASP compare to the Delica versus the Leak versus the Gent. In terms of blades, these are all, so the Manly WASP is about, they say 71, I got about 73 millimeter reed on my Manly WASP. The Gent is a 73 mil blade length. The Delica is a 73 mil, and this is a 75 mil blade length. But the cutting edge, so the blade length is from the end of the handle to the tip of the blade, but the cutting lengths are quite a bit different. So this guy's about 71 mil cutting length. This guy is 73 long, and it also, because of the upsweep in the blade, it also has a 73 mil cutting length. The Delica is only 65, so it's 73 from handle to tip, but you only have a 65 cutting edge, and this one is 75 length, so it's over 3 inches, I believe, for areas where that's a concern. And you only have, I think the Leak came in at 75 long, but 73 cutting length. So they're all very comparable in terms of cutting length. The differences in my usage was basically came down to edge retention. These guys, none of these knives have been chippy in my use, either on wood or cardboard or any other sort of other like sane light use or light to medium use. I have beat on this guy quite a bit harder than the other knives, but I found the Kershaw Leak was found quite wanting. This is a 14C28N Sandvik steel. It is a budget steel. It has very good corrosion resistance, extremely easy to sharpen and hone this guy. So if you do need, if you're just like learning how to sharpen and hone knives, this is a nice entry point for that. But we'll get into the prices a little bit later. So the steel itself, it's a bit of a budget steel. It's good for beginner if you're neglectful of your knife, you cut through fruit and you don't clean your knife off right away. That's a really good knife for that. The VG10 is in the Delica. So upgrading from this guy to this guy, The Delica is very similar to the Leak. This is a very pure steel, but this guy starts introducing some carbide formings like cobalt and vanadium and a few other elements in there. So this guy has quite a bit better edge retention than your Leak. It's significantly better. The Delica for ergonomics is very nice in the hand. That's what Sal Glesser is quite known for, is just he's mastered ergonomics, and this guy just melts into the hand. In terms of use, I have found myself needing to sharpen the Delica a bit more for garden use. So like with wood, with paper, with cardboard, it's fine. I can go a day without needing to sharpen it, 2 days without needing to sharpen it. Whereas with the Manly WASP, I can go significantly longer without needing to, rather not sharpen, but hone. I never had to remove material. I just had to, on these 3 knives, I've never had to sharpen. I've only needed to hone these 3. And this guy I've needed to actually sharpen it properly. The next one up is the S35 VN. So going from VG10 to S35 VN, you basically get some more exotic material like tungsten and more vanadium are in there for more carbide forming, more of a toothy, bitey edge. And going from S35 VN to S90V, what are you getting? Well, you're getting more of those expensive materials like vanadium, and you have a higher carbide count. So this is going to be a harder, tougher steel with more carbides in it, and it will allow you to do harder work longer in fibrous materials like plant matter and cardboards and hard things like that. So using the knives, I have seen that to be somewhat true. Going from ergonomics, like these 2 are the best ergonomically speaking. The Leak is kind of out there. And the Gent, it has a very nice, like, you're just going to like open a box, is very great for that. It's a little bit short on the grip. And if you do use the choil, I don't have large hands, but I do find that I've started like getting a little bit of cutting on my fingers from this choil. So it's good for an extremely light duty gentleman kind of knife, but for work it's not great. So those are the steels, those are the edge dimensions, all that stuff. Now it comes down to price. So price point, this guy costs $90 Canadian. This one, converting from USD to Canadian, it's about $100. The Delica, they're going for about $100 Canadian now. If it's like the brand new, because they changed their list pricing recently. Used to be 90, now it's about $100 Canadian. And these guys, even though it's using budget steel, it's also about $90 to $100. So the WASP is tremendous value. They talk again about when you're talking about knives, they're saying, well, you have to justify the research and development for ergonomics, for making prototypes, for getting the machining set up. Then you have to pay for the materials, pay for the workers. The company needs to make its margins, shipping it to the retailer. Retailer needs to make its margin, then shipping it to you. And Manly does all that, and they still have the lowest price point out of all these knives, and arguably they have the most superior materials. The Gent is a S35 VN with a titanium liner lock, and it has G10. This guy is a slip joint with a steel skeletalized liners and G10. So it depends if you really like titanium or not. I don't really care about what's in the handle so much as what's in the blade. And if you just want to try out new steels, Manly has a pretty compelling price point for that. Not only the price point, but when you look at the blade shape, it's just not only the blade shape, but the handle shape itself. There's no hot spots. It's just, if your hands are a little bit bigger than mine or a little bit smaller, there's not going to be any sort of protrusions or anything interrupting your grip. Even the pocket clip, it is designed so that that little, the friction point of the pocket clip will line up with the knuckle on most people. So it's a very comfortable knife in the hand. And for that, I just feel, of all of these knives, I would probably skip these 2. And it would be more down to if you want a name brand or if you want to experiment with more exotic steels, and it's still a very good knife, which is the Manly WASP. So going beyond that is the Manly WASP is a newer company, at least new to me, and they stand by their products. So with the chip, if I can bring it up there, so the chip in the blade occurred because, and this is why the pocket clip is loose, I just had this off right before filming. This is actually take 2. I ran out of batteries earlier, so take off the pocket clip, take off that guy, and take out the pivot. Don't think I cinched these down yet. Oops. There more. Alright, so we open her up. Actually, before that, just a bit. Just going to put a little bit of tape on the blade. This is electrical tape. I don't have masking tape. Masking tape is preferred, but if you don't have it, use what you got. So just tape up the blade a little bit, just so you're not going to have a boo-boo. And then, as great as the Manly is, it can't cut things on itself, so. Alright, so tape that off, just so you don't hurt yourself. And now we can go ahead with the disassembly. So pull that off. So it's a G10 liner. It's nicely milled out there. And then you have a, so again, the other things are like something like a Spyderco or a Benchmade. It's going to be stonewash guts. This is not stonewash, it's just nicely leveled. So it is true and leveled, but it's not stonewash. So that is a little bit of a difference there. And the reason why, let's get this little guy off. So the reason why my knife got the chip, and you can't see the chip there, but again, this is just for safety. The reason my knife chipped is when the blade was closing, I actually pulled it right off, didn't I? It would make contact with the pivot point here. And if you can see that on my knife here, it's just a little bit pointy up there. And it's a very soft press to get that guy to make contact, and that's opening and closing the knife, and just that little bit of extra impacting is what caused the chipping. So it wasn't actually day-to-day use that caused the issue. It was just that little bit. And in future versions, Manly has taken this and they're grinding it down on an angle, so it's not a hump anymore. It's going to be a bit of a inclined plane, and you don't have that issue anymore. I think they also changed the geometry in this area as well, so that it's you can look at Manly USA. It's one of the comments in my post. I'll try and put it in the comments as well, but I think they changed the geometry in this area as well, so that when you're pressing down on the blade on my knife from here to here, there's absolutely no movement. From here to here, a very soft press will cause the knife to bottom out and impact here. Yeah, so I don't know if it'll show up, but you can actually see a gouge cut from the blades repeatedly impacting that spot. And I'm not trying to, especially now once I figured out what was causing it. I've been very diligent about not creating impacts, but it has made that issue. So we have our blade out. So this is why you don't want to disassemble your knife. Also, fair warning, if you take your knife apart, you do void the warranty. So the reason why is that Manly and other companies that do slip joints, they have a special jig. You can see how the tension bar dropped down. To get the blade back in, you have to hyperextend the tension bar up so that you can drop the blade onto the pivot. And if you see, I have to do quite a bit of maneuvering to get that in there. So don't do this. What I'm doing, you don't need to do that. You just get a nylon brush out the inside with the knife fully assembled, but I'm just doing this so you guys know why you don't have to do it. So take it apart. So the knife looks not too bad inside. That's because I did have this apart very recently for the previous take of this. I'm going to take it fully down just so I can say that I did, and you can see why this is a bad idea. So take off our back spring. Like it goes there. So I should have alcohol, and because this is take 2, I should have went to go grab some alcohol, but I forgot. So to get a proper clean and dissolve everything, you probably want to get some alcohol and some wipes, but I'm using Remington Rem Oil wipes. It's a light oil on here, as well as it's going to help take off some of the schmoo. So all I'm going to do is, again, wipe it all down, and this is also going to put a thin layer of oil on the part. You shouldn't really need to lube up everything, but if you're in a corrosive area, why not? Oil the pivot. And this guy, this is why it would be nice to have some alcohol to get all of this off. Soap washers, but I was poorly equipped for this. Alright, so very quickly we took the knife apart, we wiped it all down, and now we're going to try reassembling it. So how do we go about doing that? So we'll take this guy, and then this one. If you forget which what went where, just look for the wear pattern on the washers on your insert or your liner, and you'll figure out what goes where. So this guy's going to go here, and this is the part that's going to be a little finicky. I have to get this in, then I have to, this is why a driver would be slightly better. Okay. So again, they have a jig, so this is a lot easier in the factory where they assemble these knives. But so we have to install the spring bar first. And I want that tight enough that it will not bend over when I'm putting the knife back together. So now, next one. Let's see if this will work. Let's see if I can thread that on. Back it up. Okay, it's a little bit easier to do it that way. Oops. So my impressions of this knife, so with regards to the warranty, I've taken all the videos and everything before I've gotten to this step, and Manly Canada has already said, yeah, go for it. Do your disassembly, show people why you don't want to do this, and they're still going to swap out the knife for me because of that defect with the clip, and I'll try and show it better when I have the knife back together. I'll show exactly what was wrong with it. So now that we have this all together, I'm going to rub that guy down, put on our spring bar. So our spring bar is back installed. Now we want to get a washer on there and a little bit of oil. So I was going to use gun oil again. Just a little bit, that's a little bit too much, but touch of oil, and oil's in my finger still, so oil the pivot. So we'll get the pivot in. Get the washer on. Make sure it's oiled up nicely. This is also why I'm wearing gloves. Speaking of oil, I'm using gun oil because I use my knives for utility. If you use your knives for food, use frog lube or ballistol or some other food safe kind of thing. You don't want to use gun oil if you're maintaining your own personal knife. So don't do that. So now this is the problem. I have to hyperextend this bar up so that I can seat the blade down. So the way I found that I can do that is if I basically insert this here, and this is the way you want to tape your knife. So I just move this down a little bit, put that in, hyperextend it up, 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 up. And then pivot the knife blade. So again, I need to get this lined up here. So this is going where it's going to be the shortest spot. Probably something like that. So I have to hyperextend it up and get the blade to seat. Okay, got it started. And that's it. So I have it, the blade seated now, like that. And I have it in one click, so I just have to hold it all together with applying pressure so it doesn't jump out again, like on my previous attempt. So it's all together, press everything nice and firm. So I have my knife back together up to this point. So now I can go ahead and put on the other washer. Like so. And that should be it. So the extra oil that's on there is going to drain and go around the pivot, so I'm not too worried about that. So now to get this bar on, this is also very important for the design. It's going to help keep the blade and the centering, everything true. So you need to try and do is get it on the pivot first. The pivot's going to move. It's a D shape that has to mate with the D shape on your liner. And you want to also hook it around this one. Then you're going to push up at the same time and hook it over the top. So to do that, just find out how it's keyed, use it kind of like a wrench, turn your pivot where it needs to be. So it's over the pivot and the back of the lock bar. So now I'm just going to keep pressure on both sides so that it doesn't jump out. Then I'm going to keep pressure here. And then basically get it over. So it's set here, and I have to put my thumbs in here and push it up. So Manly has, again, they have a jig for that, making it a lot easier. But again, don't take apart slip joints. So our knife's back together, everything's nice and tight, 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 tight. And now we can throw on our scale. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to throw on the pivot with the scale off so I can show you the issue that Manly has fixed. So it should be on enough that it won't jump out, and then we're going to throw on, screw on the back so it won't jump apart. Great. All right, so take this out, take this off. Oh, she's just swimming in oil. I have to wipe this down again after. All right. So the issue was that, again, you can see the lock bar, the spring bar. When the knife is closing, if I put pressure on this side of the pivot for the lock bar, I can't really get it to go down. It's a lot of force to get that to move, even if I'm like directly above it. But when I move towards here, it's very light presses make this move. I'm not pressing hard, like it's very, very light presses. And what that's doing is if you, come on, focus. Yeah. So that light press will make it bottom out. Let's try and get the focal point there. So that light press makes it bottom out there. I was able to do this properly in the other video. If you're interested, watch that video. Otherwise, Manly's resolved this. It's not going to be a problem if you have new stock. European distributors all have new stock knives. If you're in Europe, you will not have that issue. Manly Canada has all new stock coming in. So if you're worried, you can ask them in an email to say, hey, can I please have a new stock item? And you're going to be fine. So Manly will take care of you in that regard. So part of what appeals to me about a manufacturer is not only the quality of the item, but if they stand behind it or not. And Manly Canada really came through for me on that. Like I said, I showed them the video, like, hey, what's up here? This is why the knife chipped. What's up? And they said, oh, Manly Canada responded and said, well, we'll take care of you. And I'm very much appreciative of that. So got that. Oh, sorry. So put it back together. again, this is a bit of a crude disassembly. I should have had alcohol to properly degrease everything. So that's locked in nicely, and then we're going to put it on for our, and again, the chip in the G10 came from when I had my first incident with the pocket clip. It torqued to the side, the seatbelt got it that good, and it chipped out the G10. My initial plan was to take this to the buffing wheel and buff it out so I'd have a polished G10 WASP, but Manly has I'm getting a new knife out of this, so that's all good. And I still might polish it out because I do love polished G10, especially the orange G10. So torque this down so I don't have the wobble from the other time. Torque that down. So another interesting thing about another test rather of a knife's machining and the quality of the knife is if the guy in the factory gets it together, well, that's not really impressive. If some noob in his basement can get it back together, that's good. So the centering is back on. The function of the knife, it hasn't stiffened, it hasn't loosened, it's still where it's supposed to be. So I can take this knife apart. This is, I think, the second time I've fully dismantled. I partially dismantled it multiple times for the other videos I've done, but I've fully dismantled this knife 2 times and it returns to center and it's fine. So again, if you're looking for a S90V knife that is affordable and capable, I'd highly recommend this one. For me, this is a fantastic knife. Even though I'm done my 1-month reviewing process, I'm going to be replacing this with a steel insert that I got from Manly Canada, because when I'm working with this for long periods of time on wood, I prefer having just that nice flat grip for locking in my grip. So I'm going to be, with the new knife, I'm going to be putting back in the spacer and using this primarily for whittling and other kind of harder use tasks. So I think that's all the points. Yeah, the warranty, again, do not disassemble it. Warranty is void if you do so. How can you maintain the knife if you don't dismantle the knife? Just get a nylon brush, take the brush, and then just like work around all the areas so you can access, you can get in pretty good with the pivot. You can clean all the areas that need cleaning with a nylon brush. So I'd recommend using a nylon brush instead of the full dismantle. You can do it with a bearing drive knife. It makes sense to get in there once in a while and fully clean everything out with alcohol and everything. With the phosphate bronze washers, you don't really benefit from that, and you're just creating headaches for yourself. So for something like this, yeah, go in there, get a full clean. For some, especially for a slip joint where the action, it's never going to be smooth anyway. It's a slip joint. There's no real benefit in getting in there unless you're thinking about like some sort of food crud that might cause infections or grow mold. So yeah, I recommend using a brush instead, getting in there, working around. Regarding the I guess it would be a design defect. The new models don't have that issue. So they've taken that hump out of the spacer. They've ground it down, and I think they've also changed the geometry inside of the pivot so that it just won't even get that much play, because this is not much force at all, and it's bottoming out with each press like that. It bottoms out. So they fixed all the issues, and this is especially for the price, this is $90 Canadian. I don't think you can really beat that, even with, I'm a Spyderco fanatic, and I still think that for your money, this is a better thing to buy. And if you're looking into S90V, Manly does a very good job on the heat treat and the metallurgy. It's legit S90V, and I push this knife hard with my testing, carving up like some for gardening. I've been doing cleaning out the planter boxes, cleaning out the garden, pruning trees, cutting down like just basically everything, digging a little bit in the dirt, things that probably would like, this is not a tool, that would probably otherwise have affected the warranty, but the blade really held up to everything I threw at this. And I do find that I do love the blade geometry on this guy, especially for the wood carving tasks. It's very good for that. You have a very nice point for poking and cutting. Just this knife really is the complete package, and I do recommend it, especially since I have had an issue. I brought it up, and Manly stands behind their products. What more can you really want? So that's it for my 30-day review of the Manly WASP. Thanks for watching, and take care. Bye.